In this video, we are going to create this tic-tac-toe game using React and Tailwind. If you're a beginner, this is going to be an excellent project for you to practice your React skills and learn some new stuff as well. We will create this from absolute scratch, and I will be explaining every single line of code along the way. So, let's get into it. So to start the project, here I have my empty React project with Tailwind inside. I created this project using Vite. I also opened it up on the browser like this. If you don't know how to create one, you can go up to this website. You can find the link in the description and follow these steps. It's just going to take a couple of minutes. So let's start by setting this div as a background. I will set its minimum height to screen, which is minimum height 100 VH. This is going to cover the entire page. Let's give it a background, slate 950, make it a flex container and center the items inside. There is just going to be one element inside this container, which is going to be the game itself. Let's create a div for that. Set the width to 100% and maximum width to 400 pixels, MX5. So margin left and right 20 pixels. So inside this div, we are going to create the basic styling for the tic-tac-toe game. And after we create all the HTML elements that we are going to use and style them, we can start to create the actual logic of the game. Let's create a H1 that says tic-tac-toe. Let's make it a lot bigger. Font semi-bold, text white, margin bottom 8. And center the text. So under this H1, we're going to have this div. We're going to use this to display the current status of the game, such as if there is a winner, we are going to display it. And we are also going to display whoever has the turn. We're going to say X's turn or O's turn. But right now we don't have the function yet, so we are just going to say game status. The styling is also going to be dynamic, so we are not going to style this for now. For example, if we are displaying the winner, we are going to turn the text into a green text. Right under this div, we're going to have another div, which is going to be currently empty. This is to display the squares, so the game's board. And the game board is going to be 3 by 3, so 9 squares. We can easily create it using a grid with 3 columns. And gap 1. Let's give the squares rounded corners as well. We are going to hide the overflow and margin bottom 6. After we create the game board, we are going to use the map function to map over the game's board, and we are going to create 9 buttons inside this div. So right now this is going to be empty, and under this we're going to have this button that says new game. This button also going to have some functionality as well. We are going to use this button as a reset button. After we create the reset function, we are going to put it inside this button. Right now, let's just style it. So padding UI 3. So padding top and bottom 12 pixels. Let's make the text larger and white. Give it a border, rounded corners. And when you hover over it, we are going to make the background gray and also text gray 800. Let's give it some transition as well, transition colors to make the hover effect smoother, and a duration of 200. So for now, this is it with the simple designing. We can start to create the actual logic of the game. So first, we are going to create the board using useState. And the reason why we use useState to create the board is we're going to have 9 squares inside the board, and we need to keep track of all the changes that is going to happen inside these squares when you click on them or when the game finishes, if someone wins or if the game is a draw. To be able to control these scenarios, we need to keep track of the information inside the square. So let's create a state variable for the board. Board setBoard equals useState. My VS Code automatically imports useState at the top. If that doesn't happen for you, you need to import it to be able to use it. So board is the state variable and setBoard is the setter function that is going to be responsible for updating this variable. And inside use state parentheses, we are basically going to decide the structure of this state variable, which is going to be an array of 9 elements. So let's create an array with 9 elements. And also at the start, these 9 elements needs to have some sort of information inside them, because we are going to change them later by clicking on them. So we are going to fill these squares with null. For now, let me quickly show you a visual representation of this. So we got an array with 9 elements, and all of them have the null value. So at first, the board looks like this. We have 9 null elements. And let's say inside the first square, you are going to place X. We are going to change this null to X, and then the turn switches to O. Let's say you put O in the third place. We are going to change the null to O, and it goes on like this. We need to create one more state variable to keep track of whether X or O is playing. So let's create another variable named isXTurn, set isXTurn, and this is just going to be a Boolean value, which is going to be true. This means the game is going to start with X playing, and we are going to flip this value to switch the turn. Let's say you're playing X and you clicked on a square. When we create the function to handle the clicks, so let's say you click on a square as X and the turn switches to O, we are basically going to flip this and turn it to false. And these are the only two state variables that we are going to use. Next, we are going to define winning combinations, which is going to be an array, and the combinations are also going to be arrays. So let's say squares have numbers from 0 to 8. It's not from 1 to 9 because we used an array and arrays are 0 indexed. So 9 elements means from 0 to 8. So first we are going to define 3 horizontal rows that wins the game. So from left to right, 0, 1 and 2. Next, 3, 4 and 5. And 6, 7 and 8. So these are the horizontal lines that wins the game. Let's say you are playing with X. If you complete one line from left to right on any of these rows, that means it is a winning combination. Also, there are 3 vertical columns as well, such as 0, 3, and 6. This one. Next, there is 1, 4, and 7. And finally, 2, 5, and 8. And these are the vertical columns. There is only 2 winning combination left, which are the diagonal lines, and you can actually see it here. First one is 0, 4, and 8. And the second one is 2, 4, and 6. And these are all the winning combinations that we are going to need. Using this array, we are going to decide if any of the players win the game by having one of these combinations on the board. So right now we have all the information that we need. We have the board, we have the turn logic and winning combinations. We can start to create the actual functions that we are going to use. The first function that we are going to create is getWinner, and it is going to take squares as the parameter. You can think of this squares as the current board, like the squares that you clicked on. To be able to check if there is a winner, first we need to define what a winning combination means. So let's loop over this array. We don't have to initialize a I variable. We can just use let's combination of winning combinations. So if the player gets these 3 values on the same row, same column, or a diagonal line, that means it's a combination. Now let's use a if statement to check if these squares are matching. But first we need to check if the squares are not empty. So squares A. So if the square is not empty, Then we can check if square A is equal to square B and square A is equal to square C. So first we check if there is a combination at all. As you can see, A is the first element of the combination. So if there is no A, that means there is no combination. So to create a winning combination, first there needs to be A. If the A exists, then we check if the other elements are matching. Let's say you are playing the X. We check if X exists. And then we check if the first square equals to the second one. If this one is X, and the second one is X. Also, if the third one is X, then we return that symbol as the winning symbol. And outside the for loop, we return null. This means there is no winner yet, so the game is still going. Next, we need a function to handle these square clicks. So let's create a function named handle square click, and this time we are going to pass a index, which is going to be the square that you clicked on. First, we are going to have this kind of a base case to check if the square that you're trying to click on is already empty or not, or if the game is finished. So the index of the square that you clicked on, if it already exists inside the board, or if there is a winner, we are going to return the function immediately. Otherwise, if you have clicked on a empty square, we are going to update the board. So let's create a variable named updated board. So to be able to update the board, first we are going to spread the current one. So this board array, which is this state variable that we are going to update currently using setBoard, have all these squares that the players clicked on before. And we are going to update the board with the index that you clicked on by checking whichever symbol you are playing with. So if is X turned true, that means we are going to display a X inside the square. Otherwise, we are going to display a O. And now we can update the board using setter function. We can pass the updated board. And also, after each click, we need to switch the turns as well. As I explained earlier, we are going to call the setIsXTurn setter function and basically flip this to false to change the turn. So we can use an exclamation mark for that, is xturn. If you're having a hard time to understand this stuff right now, I will do a recap at the end of the video, so don't worry about it. Let's create the next function, which is going to be get game status. So this is the function that we are going to display inside this div, and we're going to use it to display if there is a winner. So get winner board, and if there is a winner, we are going to return this text. Let's use backticks. Winner. Let's use dollar signs and curly braces to display the winner. We also need to check if the game is a draw. That means every square is filled and there is no winner. So if board, we're going to use the every method. So for every square inside the board, if it's not null, we are going to return it's a draw. Again, we check every square inside the board, and if every single square is not null, this means they are all filled and there is no winner, so it's a draw. And if there is no winner and the game is not a draw, that means the game is still going. So we can just say next player and show whose turn it is. So if X turned true, this means we are going to display a X. Otherwise, we are going to display a O. And the final function is going to be the easiest one, which is going to be reset game function. And to reset the game, we are just going to clean the board and switch the turn to X again. So we can use set board to update the current board. And we can actually copy and paste this to reset the board to 9 null elements again. And also set isExtern is going to be true. And with this, we have completed all the functions that we are going to need. So let's use them. First, let's display the game status, delete this text, and let's put get game status inside. As I said, we are going to change the way we display this text. So let's use backticks, center the text, margin bottom 6, use $sign and curly braces. So if there is a winner, we are going to display the winner with text 2x large, font bold, and a green text. And we're going to use this animation called animate bounce. And if the game is still going, we are just going to display the text as text x large and white. You can already see in the background it displays the next player. So inside this div, let's create the board. We are going to map over the board. And for every square, let's pass the index for the squares as well. For every square, we are going to create a button. Let's pass the index as key and display the squares inside the buttons. So these are the squares of the board, and we are going to put handle square click inside these buttons. So on click, let's call the function using a anonymous function and pass the index of the square. And let's style it. Use curly braces and backticks again. Height 32, width full, background gray 800, rounded corners, text x large, font light. Let's give it some transitions for the colors. Duration 200, and when you hover over it, we are going to make the background gray 700. And there is a small typo here. This needs to be calls. There you go. Let's use $sign and curly braces again to display X and O in different colors. So if the square is X, we are going to display it as white. And if it's not, we are going to display the O, slate 400. And this should be it with the board. Inside the new game button, using on click again, let's put the reset game function. Let's see if everything is working fine. We display the next player correctly. And if it's a draw, we display the draw. Let's see what happens if someone wins the game. And we display the winner as well. Looks like everything is working fine. So let's do a quick recap of how everything works. So first we have created the board using useState because we need to keep track of all the changes that is going to be made on the board by clicking on the squares. The board is an array of 9 elements, and every single element has null values at the start. So at the beginning of the game, board looks like this in the background. It's the squares that you see in the background are all filled with null values. So as player X, I click on this square and this first null value turned into X. Let's say as the player O, I clicked on the third one and this third value turned into O, and it goes on like this. Next, using useState again, we keep track of the turn, and by switching this value, we switch the turns. Next, we have the winning combinations, such as the horizontal rows, vertical columns, and diagonal lines. You can actually see a visual representation of the board. So the top line is one winning combination, and these are the vertical lines. You can actually see it here. 0, 3, and 6 is a vertical line. The other ones as well, and these are the diagonal lines. You can see them here as well. 0, 4, and 8, 2, 4, and 6. And using this array of winning combinations, we create this getWinner function, and we map over that array to decide if any player has 3 matching symbols on a single line using this if statement. If there is no matching combination, we return null. If there is a matching combination, we return that symbol as the winner. So if there is a line of X that is matching, that means X have won the game. And if there's no winner yet, that means the game is still going, so we return null. Next, we have the handle square click. We get the index of the square that you clicked on, and first we have this base case that checks if that square is already clicked. Let's say you clicked on a square as X, and that square displays the symbol X. You cannot click on it again, and also you cannot click on any square if there is a winner, so the game is finished. Then we immediately return the function. Next, we have the function to basically register every new click to the game board. So we have this variable called update board. We spread the existing board with all the existing information, and we pass the square that you clicked on using this variable, and we decide which variable is going to be displayed using this if statement. So if you clicked on a empty square and if it was X's turn, then we display X. If it was otherwise, we display O. And finally, we update the board using the setter function, and we also switch the turn. We have the getGameStatus function that has a variable with the winner, and if there is a winner, we display it. If every square on the board is filled, that means the game is a draw, then we display it. If none of this happens, that means the game is still going, so we just display the next player. And finally, we have the reset game function, which sets the board to its starting position, which is an array of 9 elements filled with null values. And we switch the turn to X again, and we return this container with black background. We have this little card for the game, H1, that says tic-tac-toe. We display the game status inside this div. If there's a winner, we display the winner as a green text. If there's no winner and the game is still going, we display a white text. Inside this div, we display the squares as buttons with a grid of 3 by 3. We map over the board and display these squares. We map over the board and display a button for each square, and these buttons have on-click event handlers that executes handle square click every time you click on a button. And finally, we have the button that resets the game. It calls the reset game function on click, and that is it. So this is how we can create this tic-tac-toe game using React and Tailwind. I hope you guys find it helpful and enjoyed it. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next video.